Okay, we're continuing with this book, The Best of the West in Art, Music, Movies, and Books by me, Pete Rogers. This is video number 65. 65 from this book. So we're talking about scientists who sort of led the way to the modern world. And there's this guy here by the name of Johann von Wolfgang Goethe. Now, he's known much more for his writing than for science, but he was a very good scientist as well. His work on colors and botany. He's an interesting guy. He lived a great life. He became real famous around 22 years of age. We wrote a book called The Sorrows of Young Werther, which was just about a guy who was head over heels, pussy whipped for this girl, Charlotte. And there was just mail in those days. There was no email, no cell phone. So he kept sending letters to his friend Wilhelm about how much he loved Charlotte. But Charlotte was engaged to marry another guy, and eventually she did. And then he bumped himself off. That's Werther, okay? And, it was an interesting book, and the lesson there is don't let yourself be whipped by a woman, okay? Because it's stupid. There's a lot of fish in the sea. So anyways, that's how he became famous, and then the Duke of Weimar hired him to be his assistant advisor, and he spent the rest of his life doing that. So he's like a big hero for Germany. If you read, in the German literature, they'll say Goethe is like the German Shakespeare. Goethe exhausted the German language for all his poetry. He wrote novels. He wrote plays. And he was a genius. He was a polymath, Renaissance man. All of that is good, but I'm also going to tell you a little secret. I studied Goethe now. I'm currently reading the Conversations with Goethe by Johann Eckermann. And I'm going to tell you something. I think he's overrated. I'll explain why. I'll do a book review on that later. But the bottom line is he's overrated. And I'm going to tell you why do I say that? Because a lot of these philosophers, they start to think that they don't need Christianity and God, and then they just dissipate themselves in stupid stuff. Like his big later years book was to write Faust, about making a deal with the devil and wanting to fool around with young girls, and it's like, it's kind of stupid. All right, in his house, he had all these collections of copies of Greek statues and Greek paintings and other paintings and stuff. So he definitely was wealthy enough that he had time to spend a tremendous amount of time studying Greek culture, statuary, and paintings. And I like that. And a lot of famous people would come visit him. So he had a fun life, but he kind of, in my opinion, dissipated himself. I'll talk about him later when I do a book review on him, but that's the story of Goethe. And his big work was on colors and on botany, but he was a good scientist, not that great, but still he's an important historical figure. Next guy here is James Watt. He's inventor of the steam engine, another guy from Scotland, okay? Then the next guy here is Robert Fulton, painted by Benjamin West. Both of his parents were from Ireland. He developed the steam engine to make it into the steamboat, okay? He figured out how to develop the paddle wheel, and those became commercially viable. There was an earlier non-commercial viable version by John Fitch, but Fulton was sort of the one who made it happen, also invented a submarine. Both his parents were from Ireland. Okay, here's Eli Whitney, inventor of the cotton gin, painting by Samuel Morse, famous Scotsman, painter, inventor. And what I'm kind of showing you here is don't ever let anybody tell you about multiculturalism without laughing in their face. Multiculturalism is a joke. The modern world was invented by white Christian men, and this is historically documented backwards and forwards to anybody that actually looks it up. There's a few people from other cultures that did a little here and there, but it's next to nothing compared to these guys. Thomas Telford, Scottish civil engineer, pioneer of modern road building, and especially bridge building techniques, built many bridges that were in place for many hundreds of years later. And there was a giant technological gap between Europe and the other countries for science, manufacturing, and many other things. It's not a coincidence that the Industrial Revolution came out of England and then subsequently France and Scotland and Germany, for example. Okay, here's another German genius, Carl Friedrich Gauss, painted by Christian Albrecht Jensen, and he was a pioneer in astronomy and mathematics and physics. And, things that we know of, like the Gaussian curve, for example, and other really religious guys. And the vast majority of these guys were intensely religious. All these atheists have big mouths, but they didn't do much in science. Okay, here's John Dalton, the English chemist. Dalton's a unit of mass for atoms. Because this is culturally relevant, because basically, in modern pop culture, what's said to you between the lines is that the white male Christian is evil and he must be Jenna, then you know what word comes next, sided. We have to get rid of him. Everyone's a victim from his evil, racism, bigotry, etc. But the reality is he's actually the one who invented the modern world that led to all the prosperity, and capitalism came out of the Catholic Church. The modern scientific method came out of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is the greatest institution ever in the history of mankind. I mean, I realize currently it's taken over by the Antichrist and it's going down the tubes and it's totally corrupted as well as taken over by, infiltrated by people who hate it. But the religion itself is not the same thing as the organized church currently run by the evil ones. Michael Faraday is a poor guy born in England, and he got a job in a bookshop, read all the science books, and sort of apprenticed himself to scientist and became one of the all-time greatest scientists ever. Okay. It's a beautiful story, his life, and it also shows you that's what poor people can do. Get yourself in a place where you could read books and get yourself educated for free. Like I said, my mother's family, they were so poor they lived in a barn, but they went on to be incredibly educated. You have to want education. You have to value it. Typical quote by Michael Faraday: "The book of nature, which we read, is written by the hand of God." Okay, here's another one of these guys, Samuel Morse, of Scottish descent, American inventor. He was a good painter, but then his father was a Calvinist Puritan pastor, out of the Scottish descent. And he made paintings, and then he got really good with telegraph, and he sort of developed the Morse code. Okay. Here is Lord Kelvin, okay, who developed the Kelvin system of temperature. He's a Scots-Irish guy, developer, Kelvin absolute temperature cycle. Some of the basic fundamental laws of thermodynamics and physics, and different, fundamental scientific stuff. Sir Sanford Fleming, another Scottish guy, he developed worldwide standardized time zones. So to facilitate, making a 24-hour clock for all the different time zones, and this dramatically improved communication worldwide, trade worldwide. Is mutually beneficial for everybody involved. Okay, we're going to leave it at that for today. Hope you found that helpful.